Hello, my lovely people. Welcome back to another episode of Brutally Honest Review this week. As you can see, we're going for Gillio. Before I get started, I have two announcements. One is that the bi-weekly schedule seems to be working pretty well for me for coming up with content to talk about. So if you're interested in seeing future episodes, please subscribe to the channel and you'll be notified whenever I post another video. Another announcement is that if you have any suggestions for what other things or companies or themes to review, please comment down below or send me a message on Instagram or anything like that, and I will definitely take it into consideration. Okay, now let's dive in and talk about Gillio. One disclaimer is that I have not had much experience ordering directly from the company. The one time I ordered directly from Gillio is when I was buying some rings, literally some ring mechanisms from Kraus. So, and I used the DHL shipping, so I didn't really talk to customer service at all. And I only joined the Gillio group a few months ago. So I did not know much about their customer service, about their social media issues or social media presence before just a few months ago. And because of that, I'm not going to be talking in depth about their customer service and social media presence. And what I will do instead is I will link a few videos down in the description box that talked in depth about these issues, and I will be referring to them very rarely in the video, but just so you know, that's not something that I personally will be covering just because I don't have as much knowledge or direct experience or indirect experience with these issues. And please, please, please go check out those videos. They're very informative. And also make sure you read the comments under those videos. If you want to see kind of like both sides or what other people say, it's a very informative experience, basically. So let's dive in. For Gillio, they are a Belgium-based small company. They make ring planners, folios, traveler's notebooks, and other leather goods such as pen cases and wallets and this and that. They have a predetermined range of designs. So they do not do any custom orders and they don't do any customization on their pre-existing designs. Their production is outsourced to an Italian manufacturer, so they don't actually make anything in-house. Everything is done elsewhere by professionals that make leather goods. And they have a few different types of leathers that they offer. Unfortunately, the only kind I personally have ever gotten is the Ep.5 leather. It's a calf skin, a vegetable tan calf skin. They also have a croco, so it's not real crocodile, but calf skin embossed with a crocodile pattern. They also have ostrich leather. And usually when you place an order directly with them, you get a dust bag with their logo on it and you get a pen. And then I believe I tucked it in here. You also have the certification for this leather from the Tuscany area, where they have basically a group of tanneries, and that's what it's for. Now I'll put everything back in the box. So that's kind of like an overview of the company, and without further ado, I will just go over to talk about the quality. So in terms of the leather type, I put full grain, but a question mark. On their website, they said that their leathers are full grain calfskin. Now, I have just a few questions about that. So we know that they have full grain calfskin, and for the real ostrich leather, it's full grain ostrich leather. But the question what I have is really about the crocodile. Now, yes, it's possible for an embossed leather to be full grain, but that would also mean that there will be some imperfections on the leather that you can probably see if the rawhide that they used were not the very, very top quality. I think what's interesting is that they don't really talk about the crocodile skin all that much. And according to what I have seen, people were talking about some peeling issues they have with the top, because after they emboss the leather, they basically have to give it like an artificial top finish. And some people were talking about the peeling. And one thing to know is that according to what I read about, a way to tell if it's actually full grain or top grain leather, because they have to sand down the top to do the embossing, is to look really, really closely to the leather itself and see if you can see any hair pores. Basically, if it's full grain, you will still see some pores on the leather. Now, that's made it a little trickier if they used calfskin for the kind of like the base leather when they did the embossing, because calfskin has tighter pores. They're barely visible even on something like this. So it's just not a great way to tell, really. It is possible that the embossed crocodile leather is a full grain. I just put a question mark there because more often than not, it's a top grain leather. Just throwing the information out there. For tannage, they said that it's vegetable tanned. Again, I put a question mark there because I don't know much about ostrich leather, to be honest. So I don't know how tanning works with ostrich leather. According to the website, they are vegetable tanned. In terms of leather grade, it's hard to say. So I gave it an A-, but hear me out. The calfskins are generally more expensive than cowhide just because you get less leather per animal. It's thinner usually than cowhide. It has tighter flesh and tighter pores. So it has usually less variation than full grain cowhide leather. And it's for the same thickness, it's stronger because the fibers are tighter together. It is usually used in a lot of luxury goods for this exact reason, that it just has a nicer appearance. So for that matter, I would give their Epoca leather a pretty high ranking. Real ostrich is more expensive because, again, you get less leather per animal. But I also know that they've had some issues with their ostrich leather, so I'm not really sure about overall what their leather quality is like. The crocodile print, I have seen pictures of there being peeling on the top finish. I'm not a big fan of any kind of embossed leather, so I'm not the best person to really say if that's a sign of good leather or not. But overall, as a rule of thumb, tanneries don't use their absolute best leathers to do embossing. So I put a question mark there just because of the quality of the top finish and the fact that it's embossed. That's why the A- overall. Now let's talk about non-leather component. This is another thing that I ran into issues with. So, oh God, the cat. Give me a sec. Cat. No. Psst, Piggy, get away. Ah. Jesus. Okay. Oh God. So, their pockets are lined with this type of material that's very similar to what Louis Vuitton uses to line their pockets. Same thing with the big back pocket back here. It has like a leather-ish feel to it. And then for these pockets, the card pockets, they're lined with that type of material in the front, and then like a mesh-ish plastic material in the back. And so here's the zipper, and on the inside it's lined with that same material. Now this is where it gets confusing for me because I found this video published by Gillio themselves, I'll link it down below, that clearly said that the pockets are lined with leather. However, when I was discussing this with some lovely lady that knows a lot about Gillio in the comments of a different video, she said that these are not leather. Now, I do not know enough about this material, but she said that this is a leather-like synthetic material called Sky or something. And that confused me because I tend to agree with her that this does not seem like real leather to me. But according to Gillio, according to that video, it is lined with leather. I honestly do not know what to think of it. Did they say the wrong thing and just never clarified that down in the comments or description once they figured out that that's not the right thing? Or did they... I mean, according to that lady that commented and gave me the information, she said that it's not their first language and blah, blah, blah. But I find it really, I mean, English is not my first language either. And I find it really hard to believe that they would get something like leather or not leather confused. So whatever. Again, I personally don't think it's lined with leather. They say it is. That's why I give it a B+. It's not leather lining. Now, some companies and smaller makers do use pigskin for lining on insides. Pigskins are generally a lot cheaper. They have very visible pores, so they're not really used for the exterior of anything, but they can be skived to really, really thin, and you get a lot of leather for your money. And so generally, that's what smaller makers would go with, especially for like wallets and other small leather goods. But this, I would say, is not leather. It's a pretty high quality synthetic material, or if you believe the video that Gillio posted, then it's leather. Stitching is pretty well done. There's not much to say about it. The only issues I can find, and that's why I gave it a B plus instead, is a lot of the times you see the end of the stitching and it just feels like the thread hasn't been burnt properly. So it's kind of sticking out a little bit, which annoys me a little bit. And another thing is that the stitching around the kind of like the corners gets a little bit messier. But overall, the stitching quality is very good. I did not give it a very, very good score because of the few flaws I can find. Thread quality, you can tell that this is some very, very thin thread. I don't know what kind of thread they use. It's very thin. It's obviously not waxed. And from what I've seen in the past, I've seen some threads ripping. And so I'll give it a B for that reason. Edge finish, there's not really much edge finish to talk about because most of the edges are folded in. The only things I can see are kind of like the edge finish on the edge of the strap, edge finish on the pen loop, and on kind of like the little bookmark thingy. I didn't give it a score when I went through it initially, but if I had to, I'll give it an A. Why not? It's pretty well done. Nothing to talk about their hardware. Hardware. Rings, A minus for sure. They offer the Krause rings, which is some of the highest quality you can find. I don't have much to say about it besides that it's really good quality. The minus comes from the fact that by default it comes with silver rings. It's not a flaw by any means, but the silver ones are in theory cheaper than the gold ones because the gold ones have to go through the coloring of the rings. I don't know much about metal. So it's a little bit cheaper by default. And yes, you could request gold rings, but since their other hardware are silver, I bet that most people wouldn't want the gold ring and silver snaps to go together on the same planner. By other, I really mean just the snaps and maybe the eyelets, but I mean they're eyelets. The snaps, I give it a B. These are some of the cheaper snaps that you can find. You can get snaps that are like this from Amazon for under $10 for like a pack of 100 of them. And it's the same kind of snap that Moterm uses as well. These snaps are made in China. Nothing wrong with made in China, but they're mass produced. And if I were to guess, they're not really like solid brass or anything like that. So B grade, they're not the best. Now let's talk about how they're made. Cutting, they're not cut by hand. Again, I do not know their behind the scenes to know for sure, but the general rule of thumb is if you see very, very good consistency and they don't offer customization, chances are they're cut by the machine. Assembly, yes, they're hand assembled, as is everything else leather. Stitching, it's machine stitched. You can pretty clearly see. Hardware setting, I put a question mark. I don't exactly know if they have a machine to set these or if they hand pound it in, but whatever it is, I have seen some really questionable setting of their snaps. So the most recent Gillio I sold, the snap is just ever so slightly jiggly. So I had to go in, because I have the same kind of snaps, so I have the same settler. So I had to go in and actually set it again myself to make it sturdy. This one is pretty good, but the snaps just seem like some of them are not really set so well. But then again, I don't know how they're set. So question mark. Edge finishing, I don't know how they're finished. Question mark. Edge burnishing, it doesn't apply to these planners. Even though they're vegetable tanned, calf skin is harder to burnish. And as you can tell, they don't really have any edges that warrant burnishing really. So that's not applicable. Quality control, again, has to be done by a human. And so I put a yes. Overall, if we look at it closely, yes, it is handmade, but it's generally kind of on the more machine heavy side of handmade. And the overall construction quality and the quality of items that they use to go into the planner, it's pretty good, but it's not really the best that you can get. If you remember, I kind of gave Chic Sparrow overall, I believe, a higher score. And honestly, I probably gave Le Cow also a higher score than this. The only one they beat so far out of everything I have covered, besides the Traveler's Notebook that doesn't have any stitching, obviously, is probably Moterm. Let's talk about the very interesting things. And like I said before, I'm not going to be talking really about the kind of like the customer service aspect of things. And instead, I'm going to talk about their branding as an European luxury planner brand and why I have an issue with that. Now, I'm not one to be an elitist, like, I only use planners that are super expensive and whatnot. Obviously, I'm not, because I make my own stuff, and that's definitely not luxury. But here's my take on their branding as a luxury item. In my mind, a luxury brand is, first, you know what you get. And this is evident by the leathers that the luxury brands use. So for Louis Vuitton, the brand that I'm most familiar with, their main exterior leathers are the Vachetta. And you can see, this is just a scrap piece I have. It is a calfskin vegetable tanned. It's sensitive to water, to sunlight, to basically everything it will wear and patina beautifully. And as you see here on the top side, there is basically no variation based on the finish. Another leather they use a lot for their exterior is the Epi leather. It's also a calfskin, and then it's embossed to this kind of like wheat grain pattern. Now, what I'm getting at here is, with most luxury goods, you know exactly what you get. If you order something that has the Epi leather in a specific color, you know exactly what you should be expecting for this leather. It is also high quality, just as the Vachetta leather is also high quality. And in the case of the Vachetta, you do get beautiful, beautiful patina, and it will age uniquely to how you use it. But to start with, they choose the types of tannage, the types of finish, and the pieces of the rawhides that would give them consistency. The same cannot be said about the Gillio planners. And as you can tell, even on like the same piece of leather, you have different degrees of pebbliness. On this one, you have some very visible lines. On the back, you have this like scar-ish looking thing, and the front of it is smoother, and moving to the back around in the middle, it's a little pebblier, and the strap is pebbly. So in the case of the Gillio, you don't actually know exactly what you get before you place an order. Now, you could request a picture, but should that even be necessary? I know that people like the variation on the leather. I personally do too, but not being able to offer a consistent product is, in my mind, not luxury brand like. If you think about any luxury brand, none of them have to put a disclaimer that, oh, there might be imperfections on the leather on kind of their website, on their product page, because they are consistent. Now, you might say that, oh, they just go with, like a more natural finish, which I agree. But one thing to know is that the actual luxury brands have very, very, very strict selection criteria for the types of leather they use and what is already on the leather. So for Gillio, they would use something that has a scar like this, or kind of like a discoloration thing like this. But my aunt actually works in the leather business in France, and according to her, whenever they match a tannery with a cowhide, a rawhide supplier for a luxury brand, for example, Hermes, they would pick the leather even before it's fully tanned, just so that they can see what is already on the leather, any scars, any bug bites, stuff like that, and they would only pick the highest quality leather to be tanned into something that they can use, and then they do another round of quality selection. So that what they use is as consistent as possible, which is not to be said with Gillio. Again, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I love some natural variation in my own planner. But what I'm trying to argue here is that that's not something a luxury brand would do. If you were to really compare it to kind of like the Louis Vuitton, which is kind of like the lower end of the luxury brands that I'm using as an example. Another thing is the customer service aspect of things. I'm not going to go into too much detail about Gillio's customer service. Again, please watch the videos that I'm referring to down below. But overall, their customer service is not the very best. And if you have shopped with any luxury brand boutique, you know that you have a very personal relationship with the client associate there, or client advisor. I shop not with other brands, but with Louis Vuitton a amount. And my SA or my CA, Kate, has my number. I have her number. I text her a lot whenever there's something that I want that is not in stock online. I would ask her if she could put me on a wait list for something. The return policy is pretty good. And yeah, so basically you get the very, very personalized customer service when you shop directly with a luxury company, and Kate would respond to my messages pretty much any time of the day, and I would basically place all my orders through her because she will be the one helping me. If I have any questions or concerns, I can directly text her about it. Whereas with Gillio, you don't really get that element of the customer service, which is a pretty big part of what the luxury shopping experience is. And when it comes to item return policy and warranty, at least with Louis Vuitton, you can return or exchange your item for the first 30 days. No questions asked. And with Gillio, it's very hard to do that because then you need to deal with the shipping and everything. And yeah. And then with the warranty, I don't know if you know this, but with Louis Vuitton, if your item is unaltered. Alright, my phone died again, so I'm just going to quickly summarize what I talked about next, which is basically that with Louis Vuitton, their warranty is very good, and you can pretty much take in whatever you want for whatever kind of fixes you need, even if you're the 5th owner of a 40-year-old bag. Of course, you have to pay for it, but they do stand behind their product and they can pretty much fix anything for you, which is potentially not the case with Gillio. I would encourage you to, again, check out the videos I linked down below for more details on the whole warranty issue with Gillio. And with that said, the conclusion I gave was basically that Gillio planners are pretty good. The lower priced items are an okay deal in my mind. The higher priced items, such as the Miyakara, are not really worth the price tag in my humble opinion. And basically, you could go for it if you just want a different leather, but from what Moterm offers, which is my situation. I love vegetable tan leathers, so it's kind of like a step up from Moterm in terms of leather quality, but if you don't really have any specific attachment to vegetable tan leather, I'd say that you don't need to order from Gillio in that case. And I would say that if you're trying to get a luxury planner, maybe Gillio is not really the way to go in my mind, and there are better options out there. So overall, I think their quality is good, their leather quality is good. Is it worth the money? I'm not sure, but that's pretty much the conclusion I had. And lastly, just a little trick that I wanted to share with you. So I don't know if you know this, but each of the code here is specific to a specific tannery of the group, so you can keep track of what leather it's issued for. Just a fun little fact. So I will see you in my next video, and again, please leave a comment down below if you have anything to say to me. Thanks for watching. Bye.